waiting for this freelancer. I became part of this monster, so I could crush you.
Look at you, 621. You found a friend.
I love the mecha genre, with amazing robot designs like the bombastic Gravion, the relatively grounded armor trooper Votoms, and of course the properties that try to straddle the line of functional stylization with Gundam, Appleseed, and Ghost in the Shell. The constant questioning of current political, militaristic, and social issues is something that I enjoy hearing new perspectives on, but I think the thing that I enjoy the most about mecha is the use of the metaphysical within the genre. This usually boils down to allowing characters to connect and understand each other on a profound level that we can't do in real life outside of extensive and often quite painful conversations. And Armored Core 6 somehow executes all of these things. This is the first time FromSoftware's storytelling philosophy clicked with me. Over Dark Souls, Sekiro, Bloodborne, and even Elden Ring, somehow this game filled me with a variety of emotions without showing any characters' faces outside of a couple of faded sketches, leaving me to wonder what made these characters, moments, and game emotionally resonant. And I believe that it's the willpower behind everyone's decisions, and this conclusion led me to focus on the importance of will in Armored Core 6. But before we get started, if you enjoy my videos, please like, subscribe, and share my content. Also, if you wish to support my work directly, becoming a YouTube member is the best way to do so. Staying on topic, let's talk about the development history of the Armored Core series and what led to the most recent entry in the series. Armored Core is very similar to some of my favorite series in gaming like the Dragoneer and Kingdom Hearts franchises, that by all logic should be dead in the water, or at the very least shouldn't have a AAA entry in the franchise releasing in 2023, but by some miracle is sticking around until today. FromSoftware always developed Armored Core, and the series was originally published by Sony, but throughout the years the games always sold well enough to warrant another game being made, but not good enough for a company to continue publishing the series. This led to Armored Core games getting published by 9 different companies, with Sony publishing the first Armored Core, ASIC Entertainment publishing Project Phantasma, and then Agitech, Ubisoft, Metro 3D, 505 Games, Red Ant Enterprises, and Sega splitting the responsibility starting from Master of the Arena until For Answer. Then the series finally landed in the hands of Namco Bandai with Armored Core 5, Verdict Day, and stuck with this franchise during its long hibernation until the release of Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. But I want to take this back to shout out Armored Core 4 due to the radical shift in gameplay due to the director of this game, and For Answer, Hidetaka Miyazaki, who we all know for his work as a director on Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1 and 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring. His vision greatly influenced how accessible and fast the gameplay became, and you can see this influence all over Armored Core 6, which we first heard about being in early development in 2016, and didn't hear about again until January 2022 when there was a leak from a focus test, leading to it being officially announced in December later that year. I would like to go more in depth about the behind the scenes development, but as quoted by Daniel Dwyer, the founder of NoClip, a YouTube channel that makes video game documentaries, it's not for them, and he believes that they love the mystery surrounding their decisions and intent behind their games, after asking FromSoftware to do a documentary for them every once in a while. So there isn't much to say about the development of this specific game, so let us move on to something more tangible like the combat and gameplay. Armored Core 6 has very simple controls, with the game breaking down your mech into 12 individual parts with the head, core, arm, legs, boosters, generators, and FCS, which will affect your weight, speed, energy output, and an unbelievable amount of other stats that can change how your AC controls. Then there's the expansion slot that allows you to equip a limited ability like an energy shield to save your life or an energy wave to deal massive damage. And the most important part of your build is the 4 weapons you can equip, which are assigned to the back buttons. There are rifles, submachine guns, pistols, shotguns, grenades, rocket launchers, and melee weapons. Then there are over-the-shoulder weapons like drones, missiles, and many other options. Also, on top of that, there are multiple ammo types like energy, explosive, and kinetic. But even within those 3 groups, weapons will function differently, so the game lets you jump into training mode directly from the customization menu, allowing players to test out any small changes to their AC setup without jumping into a mission. And the best thing is that if you don't like a part, you can just sell it back for the same amount you brought it at. Because Armored Core 6 is the most generous game in the series when it comes to money, you can just replay some of the early missions to buy everything so you don't have to pick and choose and can have everything available to you at the same time. But enough about what you can mess around with, let's get into the actual gameplay. In my experience, the learning curve of Armored Core 6 starts with the first mission being difficult because of a bad beginner AC and unfamiliarity with the controls. However, the next couple of missions are easy in comparison as you start unlocking parts and try to find your playstyle in addition to the parts to complement what you want to do. Then I eventually encountered Balteus to close out chapter 1 as a test of everything I learned so far, and after losing multiple times I decided to try a tank cheese build, and after 3 attempts I won. So I realized that Armored Core 6 is a little harder than the average action game, but that difficulty can be offset by changing your build for any situation you face. For example, there was a mission where you have to fight 3 bosses at once, which is nearly impossible to do once they gang up on you. It made me almost quit the game until I realized that if I took out each enemy fast enough, they would never get a chance to tag team me. This situation led me to create an AC called Buster with 2 stun needles on its shoulder and dual shotguns, allowing me to shred the health of any enemy in my way, leading me to take down these bosses in quick succession. This process of falling and rebuilding is what I truly believe is the intended gameplay loop that the developers were going for when creating these systems. So when I look at the game like this, I don't get frustrated when I fail or get stuck for a while. But beyond the main campaign and replaying the missions from all 3 playthroughs, which I believe justifies the price of $60 alone, there is more with the arena that allows players to fight nearly every boss as they progress throughout the main story, allowing players to scout enemies before they face them during the story, or simply enjoy a boss fight without the investment of doing an entire mission. And lastly, there's even a PvP fight mode that I didn't try out but is there for people who were wondering. FromSoftware rose to the very top of the gaming industry through their painstaking work when they started a new genre with Demon Souls, with its difficult, no hand-holding gameplay which many people criticized when it was originally released. But another less praised aspect is the intricately crafted worlds that cradle the gameplay, with Bloodborne's Gothic revival, Dark Souls 3's neo-romanticism, and traditional Japanese all over Sekiro. The interconnectedness of these environments never failed to amaze me with how one area bleeds into the next. This connectivity bleeds into Armored Core 6 as well, with the Destroy the Tester AC mission area being below the cliff in the Destroy the Helicopter mission. This could mean that there were ideas about an open world like Elden Ring or giant zones like Final Fantasy XII in future titles, but FromSoftware goes in a different direction with the architecture due to the futuristic setting of Armored Core 6 using brutalism. This style is defined by its simple block-like forms and raw concrete construction. Every structure built after the core burned is about function and nothing else, with most buildings and bases having little to no windows. The ironic thing about this design philosophy is that it was supposed to be associated with democracy and egalitarianism. However, due to their association with media in bleak settings, people began to see this style of architecture as domineering and lifeless, which perfectly describes Rubicon itself, with ruins, relics, and weapons being the only physical proof of their bright past. The only pops of color in the environment ironically come from the coral everyone is fighting over and the armored cores everyone uses to fight over that coral. Then there's Rubicon, the name of the planet the game takes place on. Rubicon's definition is a limit or point that is reached when the result of one's actions cannot be changed. This not only refers to the titled fires of Rubicon that led to the events of the game, but also the agency in player choice and the NPCs during the 3 story routes of Armored Core 6. This leads me to the small portion of the story I want to talk about. Armored Core 6 is the first FromSoftware story that has captured my interest from the beginning to end due to a couple of subtle tweaks in their formula. First was how each story left a lot of room for interpretation and player agency, which led to some interesting fan theories on how events could have played out differently. Second is the use of voice acting, because in Armored Core 6 we never see the appearance of any characters outside of Walter's silhouette and a few details about 621 in the story trailer, on top of a few sketches that depict a young Carla and Walter as a child. So without a face or physical form to enhance what these characters are saying, we have to rely on emotion and tone within their voices. This is where I feel the voice actors did an excellent job of conveying those feelings and making me care about them without that crucial visual aspect. This is one of the most amazing things I've experienced in the last few years across any game I've played. On top of this, the voice actors have excellent chemistry with each other, and a lot of lines are delivered by different characters in a way that makes it feel like they're talking to each other and not just delivering monologues. This helps create an atmosphere that feels very dynamic and alive, which is incredibly important for any story-driven game. I believe that this is FromSoftware's magnum opus in this aspect. Third is the game's lore and world building, which is extremely detailed. On top of that, there are a ton of notes scattered throughout the game that help flesh out the story, providing additional context for certain things, like characters' desires and motivations. This leads me back to the overarching theme of this video, and in my opinion, the game itself. Will. Every single thing in the game revolves around this. The player has a ton of freedom in how to impose their will with all of the choices the game gives you. There are so many different ways to go about things that you might find yourself going back through areas just for another perspective on things. This game is all about the player imposing their will onto the world around them. You get to decide which characters are important and why. You get to decide how you want to interact with others and what kind of person you want to be. This theme of willpower is seen within every character in the game. So let me explain this by talking about the most spiteful and then the most compassionate characters respectively. Starting with the most annoying person in the game, Iguazu. This guy is pathetic. The whole reason why he is on Rubicon is because he gambled his life away, and because he had no money, he was forced to undergo 4th generation augmentation surgery to repay his debts. But instead of trying to keep his head low, do his job, and buy his freedom, he decides to pick a fight with his boss G1 Michigan. Based on the description, Iguazu never looked the same after that. Following this, 621 becomes everything Iguazu hoped that he could be, by climbing the wall, rubbing shoulders with some of the best AC pilots on the planet like Rusty, being the person to defeat the Ice Worm, and earning praise from all the mercenaries around Rubicon, including his boss G1 Michigan, who already thinks that 621 is better than him. These achievements pile up until Iguazu has nothing else on his mind except for the idea of defeating you and taking your place, because he feels that everything you're doing is what he should be doing and that you're taking his spot in some way, even though Iguazu has not earned that. These actions start to play on Iguazu's insecurity about how he's a weak AC pilot, so you become the sole focus of his wrath, his insecurity, everything that he hates about the current situation that he's incapable of doing anything about. This results in him trying to kill you multiple times during all 3 routes of the game, and quite frankly never succeeding. Even at the very end, in the last true ending route, where he fuses with All Mind, an all-powerful AI, did make him stronger than he ever was as a normal human. However, in his last moments where this AI is telling him how to fight, he overpowers this AI through sheer spite. And that's the tragedy of Iguazu. His willpower was so strong that it allowed him to do something inconceivable. If he had simply focused on himself, tried to become a better AC pilot, stopped trying to take shortcuts, and lived his life in a way where he focused on himself rather than all of the things happening around him, he probably would have been an amazing AC pilot. Because at least in my personal opinion, aside from Walter and Carla, Iguazu is probably the character best set up to be the main character of AC6. He starts in a place where he's unlikable to the players and many people around him. But I can see that in a different game, Iguazu could have an arc where he learns to look at things with a different perspective that would set him up to be one of the best characters in the game. But at the end of the day, that is conjecture, and Iguazu is an amalgamation of the worst traits that we all fight daily, and how negative traits can lead us to heights we can only dream of. Then there's Walter, whose willpower comes from an extremely unselfish desire, to the point it causes him emotional distress and pain. But because of his self-appointed duty, he marches forward along this path. So to understand, we need to delve into events 50 years before the game started. So to make this simple as possible, Walter is the son of a scientist who went insane igniting the new energy source Coral, leading to the fires of Ibis scorching the planet of Rubicon. So Walter, alongside Carla and other former members of the Rubicon Research Institute, created Overseer, an organization that vowed to destroy the Coral to right the wrongs of their deceased family and friends, no matter the cost. However, the interesting thing about Walter is that he feels like this sin is his own because of his family relation. Even though during the fires of Ibis, Walter was a child and on Jupiter, but for some unfathomable reason, he takes this result, guilt, and the weight of the tragedy that happened to his home upon himself. And in most stories, Walter would shut down his emotions. However, at the core of Walter is a man who simply cares about other people. He doesn't want to see other people hurt. He wants to help them. He takes on this burden because he feels like it is his responsibility. There is a detail that a lot of people tend to skip over, and that is that Walter is a capable AC pilot in his own right. I think that Walter only chooses to use augmented humans because he physically can't do it consistently, which would explain why he needs a cane to walk. But in my opinion, there's a second reason that lies within the type of people that he hires, which are augmented humans, more specifically Gen 4 or earlier augmented humans who are seen as less than human. Walter even referred to 621 as a hound.
We're close to Rubicon. Wake the dog up.
But as we continue to play the game, we find out that there are newer, more efficient generations that have all of the benefits and far few drawbacks, making people like 621 essentially worthless relics that no one wants. This makes Walter's decision to buy them even more confusing until you fight him in the Liberator of Rubicon ending, where he tells 621,
You earned all the credits. Undo the surgery.
Walter takes a chance on these people because they're going to fight with every fiber of their being, helping him complete his goal. But he's also giving them a genuine chance to buy their freedom and become normal people once again, because Walter is way too kind for the universe of Armored Core 6. In 2 of the 3 routes in the game, Walter saves you after you get caught in a trap that requires him to pilot his AC, grab you, put you inside of an emergency AC made out of very old parts, and then leads them away so you have a chance to meet up with Carla, which leads to his death in both endings. However, you also get the final piece of this puzzle named Walter, and where this strong sense of duty comes from. Starting with the Fires of Raven ending, after the credits, you get a message from Walter.
Unlock condition verified. Playing back message. Sender, Handler Walter.
Looks like you got the job done. You chose to carry our burden and right the wrongs of the past. I'm sorry, and I'm grateful. 621. There's nothing left to bind you. Whatever choices you make now, I just hope you find your true potential.
Which reiterates everything that I've talked about so far. Now going back to the Liberator of Rubicon ending, after Walter got captured, he was tortured, brainwashed, drugged, and forced into Gen 4 augmentation surgery, which allowed him to hear and see air, even acknowledging her at one point. But even in this horrible state, his willpower was so strong he remembered what his goal was and why he was fighting you.
Operations. Orders. No. My friend's mission.
Leading to Walter's final action, he decides to stop fighting you, congratulates you on making a friend in air, and allows you to escape because you're his friend as well. And I know this sounds out of character, but considering Walter has dedicated his life to destroying the coral, but when you take into account he's been emotionally, mentally, and physically pushed beyond his limits, he's probably just tired. So in his exhaustion, Walter does the strongest thing he's ever done, and that is to let go.
The mission. My friend's wishes. Look at you, 621.
He decides to entrust the future of Rubicon and the coral to you, like earlier in the game.
The coral must be burned, 621. Even if that means reigniting the fire that scorched the stars. This isn't an order. It's a legacy. My fallen friends entrusted this duty to me, and now it's my turn to hand it on.
Similar to a father entrusting something to their child. And in my opinion, this is the biggest example of the importance of will in Armored Core 6. So with that being said, if you enjoy my videos, please like, subscribe, share my content. Also, if you wish to support my work directly, becoming a YouTube member is the best way to do so. And if you want to see another video essay, that's on screen right now.